I smelled the blood before I understood it was mine. It mingled with the scent of crushed roses, deep red ones I had chosen that morning, arranged carefully by the florist, wrapped in white silk paper. My fingers were clenched so tightly around the stems. The thorns had pierced through my skin, drawing thin rivulets that trickled down to my wrist and stained the cuff of my white shirt. I didn't let go. Couldn't, not yet. Because behind the door, my wife was laughing. Not the kind of laugh that fills a room with joy, or the kind you fall in love with. No, this was different. A low, curling, intimate laugh, like a secret being told in the dark. I come home early. We were supposed to be celebrating our 12th anniversary. I had dinner reservations. A necklace she'd mentioned in passing, already wrapped in a small velvet box inside my coat. I had even practiced a few words I wanted to say. Something about how, even after everything, I still loved her more than the day we first met. God, what a fool. Started with a name I hadn't heard in years. The clinic never failed, Damien. We used your sperm. The twins, they're yours. Her voice, my wife's voice, the voice I had once trusted more than my own instincts. I stood motionless in the hallway of our home, our palace. Really, Ava liked to call it that. Italian marble beneath my feet, glass staircase to my left, her artwork hanging on the walls, the smell of fresh lilies she kept in crystal vases. And all of it, absolutely all of it, paid for by me. Elijah still has no idea, she said. My heart didn't drop. It didn't race. It stopped. There was a quiet click as she adjusted something on her desk. Probably a file, maybe the speaker. I could hear the man's voice now. Damien. Smooth, arrogant, theatrical. Well, your father's plan worked perfectly, babe. You married the genius. He funded the clinic. Got you the house, the cars, the kids. And now he's about to give you everything else. I wanted to walk in there. I wanted to rip the door open. I wanted to see the look in her eyes as she realized what she'd done. But I couldn't move. Every word cut deeper than the last. Daddy always said I needed someone like Elijah. Ava cooed. Someone stable, predictable, wealthy. I mean, look at us now. She laughed again, softer this time. Almost tender. Sometimes, I actually feel bad for him. Almost. That word shattered something in me. The roses fell to the floor. I didn't even try to stop them this time. Their petals scattered across the marble, mixing with droplets of my blood. I watched them fall like snow in reverse, soft red, sharp white, gleaming crimson. Just one more year, Ava said. Once the twins are off to college, once I've secured the last of the assets, we can be together, finally, properly. You've got it all lined up, haven't you? Damien asked, chuckling. Still the sharpest girl I know. You always were the closer. I just did the legwork. And now you'll get the reward, she replied. The money, the company. Me. Silence. The kind that hums. I realized I had stopped breathing. Ava's chair scraped softly as she stood up. I moved then, silent as shadow, back to the front door. I opened it. Closed it again, loudly this time. Honey, I called out, perfectly calm. You home. A beat of silence. Then her voice, clear and innocent as a summer breeze. In my office. My hands stung now. The adrenaline was wearing off. The pain crept in slowly, like frostbite thawing. I looked down at the roses, ruined, crimson and shredded. I picked them up with my uninjured hand and dropped them into the brass trash bin near the entrance. From my inside coat pocket, I pulled the box. Platinum, diamonds, a necklace that cost more than most people's annual salaries. I had spent hours choosing it. She accidentally discovered it in my study a few weeks ago. I thought she'd be delighted. Now I knew it had only been part of the script. I walked to her office with a smile I'd worn in boardrooms before taking down billion-dollar companies. A smile that hid 1,000 calculations per second. Happy anniversary, I said, stepping inside. She turned around, radiant as ever. Her red dress was perfect, not a thread out of place. Her dark eyes widened when she saw the box. You remembered, she said, almost breathless. Of course. How could I forget? She stepped closer, wrapped her arms around my neck. I forced myself to let her. I forced myself to feel nothing. Let me just freshen up, she whispered. Then we'll go to dinner. She kissed my cheek. I tasted her perfume. Knew it wasn't the one I bought her. As she walked away, hips swaying like they always did when she knew she was being watched, I sat down in her office chair. It was still warm. I looked around at the framed photos, the awards, the fake certificates from fertility conferences where I'd been the keynote speaker, and she'd been the glowing spouse on my arm. Then my eyes found one frame in particular. The twins. 17 now. Smart, kind, full of dreams. They weren't mine. Not biologically. But every scraped knee, every science fair, every whispered fear at midnight. I'd been there. Me. Not Damien. Not Gordon. Me. And they would never know what she had done. Not from her. My phone buzzed on the desk. A message from my lab director. The AI I had been developing, an advanced diagnostic system designed to detect fraudulent patterns in patient records, was ready. And now I finally understood why I'd built it. My subconscious had seen the cracks long before I had. I heard Ava's heels clicking behind me. I stood, offered my arm. "Shall we?" I said, smiling. "We shall," she replied. We walked out the door like the perfect couple. Only one of us still believed in that illusion. The restaurant was a chandeliered cathedral of excess. Crystal glassware, linen tablecloths, music so soft it was almost a whisper. Everything curated to be perfect, exactly the way Ava liked it. A table by the window, a bottle of the wine we drank on our honeymoon already breathing when we arrived. And there she was across from me, smiling, laughing, dressed like temptation in silk and red lipstick. I mirrored her flawlessly. I knew how to play a role. I'd spent years doing it in boardrooms and IPO meetings. But tonight, it wasn't just for show. Tonight, every smile was a blade. Every toast a test. She had no idea. "To 12 beautiful years," she said, raising her glass. "And many more to come," I replied, letting the words roll smoothly from my mouth. Her eyes sparkled as they always had. Eyes I once thought held depth. Now I knew they only held calculation. She spoke of the twins, of graduation, of wanting to travel again, of redecorating the summer house. I nodded, asked questions, listened. All the while, I was building a map in my mind, of timelines, inconsistencies, emotional traps she had laid for me over the years. I could see it now. Every lie had a footprint, and I was going to follow every single one. By dessert, I knew I had succeeded. She leaned back in her chair, content, unaware. I paid the bill with a smile. I opened her door. I drove her home. I made love to her that night. And when she fell asleep beside me, I lay there in the dark, eyes wide open, memorizing every detail of her face. I was no longer the man she married. He was gone. The next morning, I went to war. Not loudly, not with rage, but with data. I began where all crimes live, in the numbers. Back at my private office, an off-site research lab funded through one of my shell corporations, I pulled up every document, every financial report, every lab file connected to the clinic Ava and her father ran. Not the ones they showed to auditors. The real ones. The raw files. The encrypted ones they never thought I'd have access to. But I built half the damn infrastructure that ran the place. I'd insisted on it when I funded the expansion 3 years ago. Called it cyber resilience. That was my first mistake. My second was trusting them not to weaponize it. The system I was building, ARX-9, wasn't designed for vengeance. It was a medical AI, a neural pattern engine to detect falsified patient histories, fabricated treatments, and misused genetic data. But now I saw it for what it could be, a scalpel, not to heal, to dissect. Within hours, the system flagged inconsistencies across dozens of patient profiles, swapped donor IDs, procedures marked as completed when records showed no matching biological sample, double-billed insurance, ghost entries for phantom patients. But the worst part? One of the earliest entries. Ava. 12 years ago. The date was burned into my memory. The day we finally got the news the IVF had worked. I remember falling to my knees in joy, holding her hands, crying like a man who believed in miracles. It had been a script from the start. That afternoon, a name popped up on the internal access logs that I didn't recognize. Patricia Varnes. Nurse. 20 years at the clinic. Last login timestamped barely an hour ago. Curious, I requested a full access trace. She had been digging quietly, persistently for weeks, pulling archived files, employee schedules, donor logs. She was either a threat or an opportunity. My assistant buzzed the intercom. There's a Patricia Varnes here to see you. Says it's about the clinic. Something urgent. My heart didn't skip. Quickened. Send her in. She entered stiffly, like someone bracing for impact. Mid-50s, dark circles under her eyes, posture rigid but proud. A badge on her coat. Head nurse, Wilshire Fertility Center. Dr. Hale, she began. Call me Elijah, I said, gesturing for her to sit. I assume you're not here to deliver good news. She didn't sit. I know what they did to you, she said. No hesitation. No small talk. Just that. I stood slowly, crossed the room, shut the door. Go on. She lowered herself into the chair. Finally. Opened her purse. Pulled out a flash drive. I worked under Dr. Wilshire, your father-in-law, since his first private clinic. I watched your wife do her residency. I've seen too much, and I've been too afraid. Until now. She handed me the drive. Everything I've saved over the years. Audio files, internal memos, patient complaints. But the most important, the day of your fertility treatment. Your wife accessed the storage vault. She wasn't supposed to. She didn't have clearance. But Gordon, he overrode the protocols. Her voice cracked. Just once. They used a different sample. Yours was never touched. I saw them do it. But they told me if I spoke, I'd lose everything. I stared at the tiny piece of plastic in my palm. A little rectangle, filled with proof. Why now? I asked. Patricia swallowed. Because your name came up. Again. Recently. This time. Not as a patient. As a target. And I think you're their last one. That night I watched every video. Read every note. Ran it all through ARX9. And with each revelation, something inside me began to harden. The betrayal wasn't just mine. It stretched across dozens of families. Couples who thought their dreams had come true. Children raised under lies. Lives manipulated to benefit one man and his daughter. And the other man, Damien, he wasn't just some reckless ex. He was a co-conspirator. Introduced by Gordon. Kept in the wings. Ava's college boyfriend. The one with a gambling problem that, how convenient, had forced them to break up before she met me. But now I knew the truth. The debts were real. But someone, likely Gordon, made sure they never became a problem. Just a story. Just enough to paint Damien as unsuitable. Until the time was right. And now. It was. When Ava got home that night, I was already in bed. She crept in, humming softly, as if she hadn't spent the last 2 hours fucking a man I never knew I hated so much. Her fingers brushed my shoulder. You're working too hard, she whispered. I turned my face toward her. Smiled. Just focused on a new project. Still the genius, she murmured, pressing herself against me. Don't forget about the board dinner next week. Daddy wants to pitch the new expansion proposal. Wouldn't miss it. She fell asleep quickly, peacefully, and I lay there, staring at the ceiling, plotting the precise moment everything she thought was stable would fall through the floor. Let her keep her peace for now. Soon the ground beneath her would shift, and when it did, she'd remember this silence. Graduation day was warm. Not bright, not cheerful, just warm. The kind of heat that makes you feel like something is about to break, even if the sky's clear. Maybe that was projection, or maybe it was prophecy. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, tying my tie with slow, mechanical precision. The same silk tie I wore the day Ava and I were married. The day I believed in the life we built. I wore it now like a funeral shroud. Not mine, theirs. Downstairs, the house buzzed with shallow joy. Ava, radiant in a white designer dress, smiling, always smiling. Grace and Aiden, our twins, were finishing breakfast. Cap and gown, valedictorian sashes, college letters of acceptance sitting proudly on the mantel. All of it real, everything except their origin. The night before, I had sat in my lab and packed 2 silver envelopes, each identical. Inside, a USB drive, a letter written by me, and evidence, genetic tests, clinic footage, intercepted emails, voice recordings. Everything. The truth. I didn't write the letters to hurt them. Not really. I wrote them because I believed they deserved the choice I never had. The clarity I was denied. I raised them. I loved them. But they had the right to know who else had tried to write their lives without consent. And they had the right to choose who they would walk forward with. The ceremony was held at a private academy nestled in the hills, overlooking the city I no longer called home. Hundreds of families packed the seats. Flashbulbs, applause, speeches about growth and futures and everything beautiful youth is supposed to promise. I sat beside Ava in the front row. Gordon, my father-in-law, was on the other side of her. Damien sat 2 rows behind, a subtle smirk on his face. His presence explained to the public as a friend of the board. I could feel the moment his eyes landed on me. He was watching me. He knew I knew. He just didn't know how much I knew. And now, the principal said, our valedictorian, Grace Holloway. She rose like a star ascending. My daughter, though not by blood, walked to the podium and stood before a sea of expectant eyes. She looked calm, beautiful, and then, for just a flicker, her gaze locked on mine. And I saw it. That question. That storm behind her eyes. They'd already opened the envelopes. Grace's voice was steady, even as her hands trembled slightly. I was supposed to speak today about growth and courage and the future. But something happened this morning that changed what I want to say. Silence. A stillness descended over the crowd. You could feel it building, the electric pressure before a downpour. My brother and I, we learned something. About our family, about where we come from, and about the lies that were told to us. Ava stiffened beside me. Gordon's expression shifted, confusion beginning to crack into concern. But I'm not angry, Grace continued. I'm thankful, because someone had the courage to tell us the truth. And because of that, we get to choose who we become. I glanced back. Damien's face was pale now. Ava gripped her clutch so tightly her knuckles turned white. Grace finished her speech and stepped down to thunderous, confused applause. Most of the audience unaware of the bomb that had just been dropped. But I knew. They all knew. And that's when the second wave hit. It began with phones buzzing across the auditorium. News alerts. Federal indictments. Sealed investigations unsealed. A breaking headline on every screen. Massive medical fraud exposed. Wilshire Clinic under federal investigation. Anonymous whistleblower provides decade-long trail of deception. My AI system had released everything through Vera, my attorney, through Patricia, our inside witness, and through multiple encrypted channels to media outlets and regulators. And just like that, the walls collapsed. Gordon stood, furious, face purple with disbelief. What the hell is this? Ava looked at me then, really looked. For the first time in years, the mask slipped. Behind it, panic, guilt, disbelief. You! Elijah, what have you done? I rose slowly, meeting her eyes. What you never expected. I listened. Security was already converging on the exits. Agents in plain clothes flashing badges. The board members of Wilshire Fertility Center were escorted out. Gordon tried to object, until one whispered something in his ear that made his face go white. You told them. He whispered to me as they pulled him away. You told everything. No, I said quietly. I proved everything. Damien tried to leave through a side door. He didn't make it. 2 federal agents intercepted him. The warrant was clear. Racketeering, wire fraud, criminal impersonation, even a few offshore gambling charges they hadn't expected. Funny, the debts he once pretended to have, my AI made them real. and traceable. Ava remained seated, alone, shaking. Grace and Aiden stood nearby, arms crossed, envelopes in hand. They didn't cry. They didn't scream. They looked at her with the same calm, curious eyes they used to look at fossils at the Science Museum. "Is it true?" Aiden finally asked. Ava's lips parted, then closed. There was nothing left to say. The fallout happened fast. Gordon was sentenced within the year. Damien pled out for a reduced sentence. Ava lost her license, her career, and her reputation. The clinic was dismantled. A class action suit began with 32 families and grew to hundreds. But me, I disappeared. Not publicly, not legally, just quietly. I sold my shares in silence, moved to the West Coast, changed my name, built something new, something incorruptible. My AI became a beacon of accountability. It now runs in over 400 hospitals worldwide. And I still talk to the twins, because they chose to stay. They chose the man who raised them, not the one who fathered them. Took betrayal to show me who I was. And it took betrayal to make them finally see me for what I had always been. Not a mark, not a puppet, not a fool, but a man who learned the one thing every deceiver forgets. If you teach someone how to lie, you also teach them how to see the lie. And once they see it, they will never unsee it again. Let the world rebuild. Let them whisper my name in courtrooms and corporate meetings. I don't need revenge anymore. I built something better. I built justice. And justice, I've learned, doesn't whisper. It echoes. Forever.